Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. It is April 5th. It's the 11th lesson of our 20-part series, so we're more than halfway through the semester, and I'm excited and happy because I have a new technological setup here, and I'm going to be using some new things in order to annotate, so things might look a little bit different. I have a new whiteboard that I'm using and a new way of connecting to my iPad over there, so things might look a little different, and also bear with me while I kind of figure out and, stumble my way through working with this new equipment. And also, I used to always ask everybody to be muted and only ask me questions in the chat, but now we can be able to have a real conversation via audio back and forth, so that should be really good. So level one, what I wanted to talk about is, we've got the flower of life. Okay, let me grab my little sculpture. You are experts in this class. You've seen me talk about this all the time. This little sculpture right here and its relation to this sculpture right here. So I'm going to talk about some math concepts, oops, sorry, I made that shape, that are meant to be empowering. And the first part of this is about, it's going to relate to the lesson on the Merkaba and the star tetrahedron and the shape, the cellular structure of our body and how that relates to the shape of time. And so what I'm going to do is like a refinement of some of these math concepts, and I'm going to give you a little bit of math history. So none of this is meant to be overwhelming. None of this is meant to be boring. It's meant to be fun, empowering, and to give information. I would say, like, don't be intimidated. That's what it is. It's not meant to be intimidated because it's involving math and numbers. So the first thing is flower of life, because this is a big. I'm scrolling over here. Hold up. Well, I should go where you. No, that's okay. What do I mean when I talk about the flower of life? This is something that is quite well known in the New Age world. Oh, don't tell me I don't have my picture set up properly. I know I've got my picture set up properly. Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. How about I do a little whiteboard drawing of it? Got the whiteboard coming up? Okay, clear this all out. That was my scribble that I did to test things out to make sure that it works properly. So the flower of life is basically this six-petaled shape that is made from intersecting circles, and you basically get a radiating star pattern that looks something like this. That's a terrible one. Undo that. Sorry, it's laborious drawing, guys. We'll get it. That is a very rough and ready idea of what the flower of life is. But basically, it is a pattern that has these six, petal shapes or lobes that stick out at these various angles. And the angles are 60-degree angles. So for anyone who watched, that's a little bit tough to draw there. For anyone, let's stop share. For anyone who watched the episode that I did about the Merkaba, I held up those equilateral triangles. Let me grab my equilateral triangles for continuity. Sorry, I just ducked off camera. Equilateral triangles. This is from the lesson on the Merkaba. So an equilateral triangle means that all of the sides are the same length and all of the angles in the triangle are the same. And in this case, all of the angles must be 60 degrees because they all have to add up to 180 degrees. And that this is one of these basic foundations or grids that is considered like a building block of the physical existence. So the whole idea, and there's some other teachers that have done some good work on this. The idea of saying that the flower of life pattern, when it is simply presented as a flat line drawing without this additional information, is actually disempowering. And a lot of it, I use the example, it's very similar to if you had an old grandmother who had a recipe for strudel, and she's like, okay, everyone wants to know my recipe for strudel. It's so easy, like she only gives you the simplified version or a partial recipe, then it's not really enough for you to be able to recreate her famous strudel recipe. She's like, oh, it's just some water and some flour and, you throw it together and then you put the apples on top. It's like, okay, cool, I think I know what I'm doing, but you actually try to do it, you make a horrible mess because it's all about the technique and the refinement of it and having a foundation understanding or a metacognitive understanding of what you're actually doing. So the same is true with the flower of life pattern. That if someone just gives the flat line drawing, which has now become highly popularized and it's, airbrushed on baseball caps or yoga pants or anything like that, without the actual understanding of what it is and how to utilize it, it's not empowering. It's like getting half the recipe so that then you can't actually apply that information to your life for empowerment. And all of this is meant to be about empowerment So I'm just trying to decide which direction I want to go in. So in this level 1 presentation, I want to talk about flower of life. I want to relate that, octagons and hexagons and how, octagons and hexagons and how that the switching between the two, just like in my lesson about the Merkaba, is just like the switch of perception between in an optical illusion. But I also want to give a little bit of background on numbers and where numbers came from and what the Fibonacci sequence is and what phi, the proportion, is. And all of this, if there's one takeaway, or one, the summation of what I'm talking about on this topic, it is that our physical body is highly numerical. But this is not to say that you are just like, I'm not a transhumanist. This is not just to reduce you to a series of binary numbers, nothing at all like that. But it's literally saying for us to be alive, for us to have a body and have vitality and eat and poop and walk and talk, that we have to conform to these patterns with our physical body. And if you don't, let me turn on my piano. I'm right here at my piano. Oh my goodness. I've got everything all set up here. It's so excited. If you don't, it's turning on, it's turning on. If you don't play the right music with your cellular structure, then you can't be alive in the symphony of life. However, that cellular structure is only part of the recipe of who you are. And so we need to have the higher dimensional understanding. That's like grandmother's wisdom. Because if you're going to make the strudel recipe, on a rainy day, the dough is different than on a very dry day. And you have to know the technique of how to roll everything out properly so it doesn't stick to the cutting board and how long you let the dough rest. It's a whole involved process. There's a whole involved process of understanding how your physical body structure connects to numbers or can be described numerically, and how numbers and that numeric description of your physical cellular structure connects to time. Because remember, this is your time body, okay? So we ordinarily have that toroidal, donut-shaped time body here. And then the whole idea that what I spoke about last week is when we add an additional dimension, we get this shape to turn into this shape over here. And that gives us an additional degree of freedom to literally rearrange the numbers that the equation of who we are. And if you can rearrange your numbers, you can rearrange your numbers so that you don't have to feel disease. You don't have to chronologically age. We can move through time, but without having to experience chronological aging, which is, like this lasagna is a year old. It doesn't look more decrepit than it looked last year. It still looks nice and shiny and beautiful. Like, why do we have this presumption that our cellular structure should lose vitality as a living system as we move through time? To me, that is a erroneous idea that I'm trying to get everyone to understand in a new way. So let me drink some water, and then I want to talk about the origins of numbers. I also want to talk about how. Let me bring up a picture. Let's start with a picture. How about that? I'm looking off camera. I don't mean to be rude. And also, isn't this good? I have this new setup so that it doesn't look like I'm always looking off into the distance. I'm now firmly in front of the camera. Let me just show you this image that I've got over here. And let's hopefully this will all work perfectly because life is awesome. Let's hope the picture comes up. Picture come up. Picture's coming up. Life is awesome. So I did not draw this particular picture. So the first thing is, let's annotate. Down here, you see what is known as the flower of life, just the line drawing. I thought that I had a little separate segment just to show everyone that. That's what I was looking for before. So that's what I'm talking about. Spray painted on yoga pants, very well known in this time and place. And all of that, what we've got over here on this side is actual photographs of cells in the moment of conception. So this is cell division, but not mitosis. Mitosis is when you just have one cell, like I'm drawing one cell, and it splits itself in half. And I have a cool image to show you about that one cell splitting itself in half. You want to see it? I'm switching around, but I can jump around because now I've got this new system. Check this out. Someone sent this to me earlier, and it is taken from a scientific article. So this picture here is a very recently taken, scanning electron microscope photograph picture. So like a real picture, not a CGI, of cells that are splitting together. Okay, let's talk about cells and how they split or reproduce. They do this in two different modes of biology. One is when you have conception, you have like your fertilized egg over here and starts to explode outward geometrically. And the other one is your individual cells. Like here's a mama cell, and it's like, oh, I'm getting pretty old. I better make a daughter cell so that it'll be around when I die off. And that can be your skin cell or your, eyeball cell or your bone cell or whatever it is. So that's mitosis. That's different than the first picture that I showed you, which is, the conception, which is where that flower of life happens. I know I'm jumping around, bear with me. This is a picture of the structure of DNA during the process of mitosis. And it's from an article that a student of this class sent to me and made me aware of. And what's really interesting to me is that she said she saw the flying rainbow lasagna shape very clearly, and I see it too. So I'm going to roughly outline. We see the curly edge of the lasagna noodle here. And then we also see the two, we've got one point up here and one point down here. And as I've been telling you guys, that this is a dance that happens with your DNA, and that your DNA has behavior. So when the cells are splitting apart, when you got a big mama cell over here, and this is the nuclear area of the cell, all of the chromosomes that are in the nucleus of the cell, they organize, kind of like partners in a dance. They do-si-do and then they split apart. And this is that last moment of them do-si-doing and splitting apart, which I think is just really beautiful and interesting, because they're clearing everything away. You can see how it really is making a lasagna shape. So now let me go back to, oh, this is so cool that you guys can see my screen. Let me go back to that other picture. All right, cool. So this is different than mitosis, mother and daughter cells splitting apart. This is conception, and you start over here with one cell, and then it gets fertilized and it splits into 2 cells, and then into 4 cells, and then into more and more and more. And you can see each time it subdivides, these are clusters of spheres. That's the big takeaway. This is a flat line drawing, what I'm pointing at with my red arrow over there, and this is also a flat line drawing that we now understand is a cross section of spheres. So just like, let's clear this away, just like in this, check this out. Now I can show you this picture much more easily. Just like in this optical illusion, you understand that you are looking at the same line drawing, but you can interpret it in 2 different ways. When we go back and we look at this picture with the DNA, we need to start adding in that additional dimension with our mind. In the same way that, when you look at anything that is I'm going to draw a little box in the Q dimensions. That's not really a 3-dimensional object, but we have a system of perception that we've all acculturated, and we've all decided to agree, we're going to call this a 2-dimensional version of a box, even though we know that it's not actually sticking off the screen. So what we need to do is say, even though we know we're looking at a flat line drawing of all these things over here, what we're actually doing is looking at a cluster of many, many 3-dimensional objects, and that is the pattern that it's making. And what happens in the moment of conception is, when we have these 2 genetic materials, we have, egg over here and we have sperm over here, and when they come together, they create a type of, we're not calling it geometry anymore, because I've said that in the introduction, we're calling it, or I'm choosing to call it, the language of vibration. It's a language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone is musical tone. My voice doesn't sound that good today. Tone is like, we're talking about vibration. It's vibration of visual waves, and also vibration of audio waves, and also vibration of time waves. And so when the genetic materials come together in the moment of conception, what happens is there's this wonderful explosion outward, or let's say not like a violent explosion like a bomb going off, but a radiation, moving outward. And that if that is done perfectly, if the music is perfect music, then it sounds good to the symphony of life, and that is a successful conception where the cellular structure is arranged correctly enough to be able to support consciousness. Because if you do not arrange, let's see if it goes back to my face, going back to my face, good, it all worked. If you do not arrange the cellular structure in a way that is according to the music of the symphony of life, then essentially you can't be alive. You can't maintain life. This is how we can also understand, malformed fetuses that are in conception. Maybe the brain has formed outside of the skull, or the stomach is formed outside of the epidermis. Like, that's not conforming to this musical pattern that we're supposed to conform to. So all of that, in order to really affirm having a body is an awesome experience. Each one of us has had to go through many, many laborious iterations in exactly the same way. Should I draw the time vortex? Draw the time vortex. For anyone who's tuning in on this class new and you've never seen this, or for recap for anyone who's familiar already, clearing stuff away so I can draw this properly. So the time vortex is this essentially a probability field where I've got, oh my goodness, it's not that perfectly drawn. Oh my goodness. That's the central core timeline. That is the infinity timeline. Let me change to a different color. Oh, good. I've got different colors here. All of these other timelines that I'm drawing in blue are the most probable, but they all end in death, which is this flowing membrane over here. And the least likely probability, there's only one of. This one that I'm drawing in blue in a big fat blue line up there. There's only one of those guys. And that is the timeline of eternal life. And eternal life means that we continue onward in our consciousness. We don't have to end the journey and hit the membrane of death and circulate back around. This is just one person's incarnation or life experience. But just in order to be born, you go through one of these types of probability refinery apparatuses, where there are many blue timelines over here where your fetus could not even be correctly formed. It's like failed paintings that didn't end up looking good, or symphonies that didn't end up sounding good, songs that didn't end up sounding good, until you finally figured out, oh wait, this is the right melody, this is the right way to make a painting, and then you actually were able to successfully gestate a body and be born. Just being born is its whole own huge accomplishment. So congratulations to everybody who's here, who has a body. And this is also why I try to get everyone to understand, like, you don't have to feel burdened by having a body. But the burden, it's a wonderful privilege. It's awesome to have a body. But I'm just drinking water, so I'm leaning forward. The reason why so many people feel having a body is burdensome is because, first of all, going through those many, many multiple iterations just in order to be born, and then just in order to successfully, not hit the membrane of death and continue onward with your consciousness is laborious. We're not supposed to have, like, if I want you, I'm moving my little trackpad here. If I want you to play that note, you shouldn't have to go through all these other notes. Not right, 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 not right. You shouldn't have to play all the 87 wrong keys before you finally get to that right note that is the note that you're supposed to play in the symphony of life. So all of this, it's empowering when we learn how to read the musical score of the cosmos. That's what all of these paintings are back here. So in the empowerment zone of this presentation is this greater understanding of numbers and what people are presenting as sacred geometry. So first of all, the word geometry comes from literally geo and metric. It means measure the earth. And this comes from way, way back in ancient Egypt, when the yearly flooding of the Nile, like they had these perfectly drawn lines that delineated farmlands. The flooding of the Nile would wash away and erase those boundaries, and then they had to redraw them every year. So they had to figure out a way to evenly divide up the crops. So it was literally a system of, it was like putting poles or little sticks into the ground and then having a long rope or a string that connects those sticks to measure the earth. So geometry would be an appropriate word to use, like if we're just talking about measuring the cell structure of your body and the way that it integrates and reacts. But we're also talking about time. So then it's not just about something that we can measure with a physical implement like a ruler. We're talking about something non-physical. So we need a greater understanding of what that is. So the basic takeaway and what I'm trying to present here in terms of flower of life is that, and this goes back to that teaching of the Merkaba, moving from a hexagonal grid, here's a good way to remember this. Hex sounds a lot like six, so things that are hexagonal are six-sided. So we're moving from that hexagonal grid into a grid that is octagonal, like the 8, built with 8s. So I'm trying to think if I have any pictures easy. Let me scroll through and see if I have any pictures that are easily available of water crystals or carbon atoms. But basically, water crystals and carbon atoms are both 6-pointed, and that makes water and carbon are a great deal of what our physical bodies are made of. And this is all about like how to jump out of the materialistic world, how to jump out of the materialistic viewpoint in order to understand that we have this whole non-physical body that's all around us. Here, what do I draw when I draw these paintings here? Wait, I'll show you a picture over here. I just pulled up my picture. Now I'll show it to you on my share screen. This is very exciting. I'm very excited. And here it comes, the picture that I'm showing you. Just takes a second to pop up. Okay, all of this stuff that's around here. Let me draw it with my magical magic over here. All of this stuff over here that I'm highlighting in red, that is outside of the figure. Here's the figures, like I'm now kind of doing a silhouette of where the edge of that person's body is. You have the anthropomorphic body. That is what the objective materialist says. That is all that you are, but that's not all that you are. There's all of this. And this is all what I would describe as time, as various different levels of who you are. It's not anyone else. It's all you. It's all versions of your anatomy, but they are moving through time at a different rate than your physical body. Your physical body is concentrated light that is slowed down. That's what physical matter is. And all this other stuff that I'm scribbling in red is slightly faster in its rate and slightly less dense. And we go through all these different layers of density until we get to here. I'll show you another picture too, until we get to one that this one make me a little bit easier to see. Go through all, like if red is this lowest level of density down here, and also one of the lower notes on the scale. Not worse, that's a nice note. That's not a bad note. It just is a lower note, because there's this whole thing about lower self and low vibration and higher self and high vibration. They're all notes on the scale. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just supposed to have a healthy body, not an unhealthy body. Those lower notes on the scale, that is light that is going slower than the speed of light. And all of this other stuff that we're made out of is light that is moving faster than densified matter. So that, yeah, we'll clear this away, stop share. I'm figuring things out. Good. Back to my face. Go back to my face. Good. Wonderful. This time body, this time aspect of self has negative space. And I say this all the time because, like, I'm used to art school talk. When you talk about the negative space of a sculpture, that's the interior, or if you have a boundary, like if you have a coffee cup, the coffee cup's rim is the boundary, and then where the coffee goes, that's the negative space. Again, it's not worse than any other space. It's just the interior space. This sculpture has interior space, where I'm putting my little pen, here, move it closer, where I'm putting my little pen here, 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 here. That's the interior or the negative space of that sculpture. And you can see it's got these 4 lobes or football shapes. This is all analogous to the recorded lesson. So the recorded lesson for level 1, lesson 11, is basically all about how these shapes fit together in order to create these, this shape integrates with this shape. And this shape, I know, is a very, I made it out of kids' clay. It's made out of like Play-Doh, but it shows you what I'm trying to talk about. You see that I have 4 lobes that are facing the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one looks like, oh, look, there's 4 lobes that are part of that shape. And I don't know if you can see it on my paintings in the background there, but I use that. Yeah, you can actually. That one that's right there, that's hanging on the wall over there. The basic 4-lobed shape, the motif in all of these paintings. But what you're looking at is a cross section. Just like I asked you on that diagram, we now need to start adding with our mind the idea that that's a cross section of spherical objects. We now have to add with our mind the idea that that shape is a cross section, the 4-lobed shape of something that actually has 8 lobes. So I'm holding 2 of the lobes back here. So let's count them out. We've got 4 in the front, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the back, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so this shape actually is shaped more like a cube. There's the surface that my hand is, that it's resting upon. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually situated. I'm going to jump ahead because I was just going to say, it's Saturn's cube. It's Saturn's cube. This is like limitation and harm and preventing us from jumping into higher dimensions. And I'm like, no, this is empowering information. Let's keep going. Don't jump to conclusion, because we achieve the power of life when we turn that cube on edge. And now the camera is going to do the work of creating monocular vision for us. But if we're here in my studio, I would ask you to use only one eye, because we have 2 eyes. Most people have 2 eyes. So mostly that is binocular vision. And the camera already does it for us in this technological world. So I'm holding this in such a way so that you can see. I hope you can kind of see that. There we go. We have the 6 radial spokes. It's just a little hard for me to hold this exactly perfect. Thank you for bearing with me. Let's count them out, the 6 radial spokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Sorry, everything shifted around. Do it again so that you can see it better. It's very difficult to actually do this. You have no idea. Count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is the flat cross section, like we're looking at a plane, you know, like one flat plane, like a flat piece of paper that is usually presented in terms of talking about the flower of life. But we also understand, hey, what about this guy? I'm touching this guy. This guy's foreshortened, moving towards the camera. That's 7. And how about this? I'm holding on to one guy in my hand back here. That's 8. So this dimension that goes from my hand forward to here, that's the extra dimension that sticks up through the flat plane, like at a 90-degree angle, not at a 90-degree angle, but at an angle like a pencil poking through a flat piece of paper.
Do a pump up, give a cake if you want, and give yourself a spray.
Oh, I can't hear you. You broke up a little bit on the audio. Can you please say that again? If someone was making a comment or had a question, can you please say that again? Okay, because we're doing things a little bit different. You can still do questions in the chat if you want to, and I have the chat lined up and I can see you there. But also, if you have any questions or comments, you are welcome to simply break in and speak, because now I've got a better setup to be able to do that. So anyway, the limiting strudel recipe is when we only say, oh, there's just these 6 spokes that are going around the outside, without actually telling everyone, oh, but you also actually have these other aspects of self that are in higher dimensions. And that is the connective integument from a hexagonal based in 6 system to an octagonal based in 8 system. And this higher dimensional aspect of self, your time body, is based in 8. So it's like saying regular anatomy, they only teach you about what your physical body is doing. Like you're breathing, you're metabolizing, you're pooping. They don't teach you about how you're moving through time. No, you don't go to any doctor and be like, doctor, look at my time body. Like, please, you know, look, please, whatever, check my time blood pressure. How's my time pressure doing? We don't do that. We go to the doctor and be like, how's my physical body doing? That's the basic flower of life. That's why that limited teaching has been done in order to limit humanity instead of our group saying, no, let's not let's have a much more extensive understanding of this so that we can be empowered about what's actually going on. When a person is conceived, like in the moment of conception, genetic materials come together in such a way that it creates this perfect expansion, is the word I was looking for, not explosion, a geometric, but not geometric, perfectly integrated, harmonically patterned expansion that is an energy field. And that energy field defines the cellular structure of the entire human from infancy into adulthood. So that moment, that it's like a musical moment of expansion, like beautiful music is being played, the beautiful music expands outward, and as that music expands outward, it makes this complex pattern, and that complex pattern is how the cells of the body are literally arranged in order to be able to play the music of life. But we don't just have a physical body, we have a physical body that is moving through time. And so understanding these, like the 2 ways you can look at the optical illusion, you can look at it as you can look at it as a flattened flower of life. You can look at it as a cube. You can look at it as an octagon. That this is how we move beyond the limitations of perceiving as merely physical. Okay, so let me go a little bit into this. What is the Fibonacci? Because I'm talking about like what is defined as sacred geometry in this time and place. What is the Fibonacci sequence, and where do numbers come from, and how are we understanding all this, and what is the proportion that is known as phi? First, let me write that down for you. Okay. It's not working. Hold on a second. I know that's not written so perfectly, but the letters P-H-I, this is phi, that comes from Phidias, an ancient Greek who did some incredible architectural feats by being able to understand this basic proportion. And the basic proportion is 1 to 1.618. Go back to this so I can write it for you. 1 to 1.618. But that's a number, oh, wait, right there we go. That's a number that dot, dot, dot. Just like pi, there are also dots here. Just like the number pi continues on indefinitely, this 1.618 number also continues indefinitely. And this proportion that I just shared for you here is a basic proportion that we see in all of our cellular structure. Now, I will show you on your fingers, this finger bone, proportional relationship to this finger bone is 1 to 1.618. On your teeth, this tooth, side tooth, to your front tooth is 1 to 1.618. Hey, guess what? Your legs, the length of your thigh bone to the length of your calf bone is 1 to 1.618. And now I want to tell, so this is in exactly the same way. If you look at a honeycomb, bees have built a honeycomb. The honeycomb is shaped exactly like these hexagons. Why is that? Why are they using all these perfect 60-degree angles? Why are they working in hexagons? And the way that bees do this is that they have a little like a little calibration inside of them. They make the first wall of their honeycomb, and then they know how to move exactly 60 degrees to the side, and then make the next one. And then they know exactly how to rotate 60 degrees to the side and make the next one. This is part of how like cellular building blocks fit together on these perfect 60-degree angles. And it's also how we can understand water crystals forming and the shape of carbon atoms. And then we drink water, keep it on track here. I get very thirsty. So this 1 to 1.618 magical proportion known as phi is evident in many other cellular structures too. Like there's a lot of things where people show the nostrils, other things like that, other the interior of a sunflower, all of that good stuff. And all of that comes from this math that goes back to Fibonacci. Okay, so I'll write down the word Fibonacci because now I have this wonderful thing that I can write this. Here's some rustling around a little bit there.
Aurora?
Yes, you have a question.
Well, there's someone that's unmuted. It's making it very distracting for us.
Thank you very much. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mute everyone. Let me figure out how to do this because I said that everyone was ready. You know what? I'm going to mute everyone, but then if you hold on a second. How do I mute my participants? Thank you so much for that. Okay, that is actually really helpful. I just muted everyone. Anybody who has something important to say, unmute yourself. There's a way to do so in when you hover your cursor and then say your question, and then you can have a conversation or mute yourself again. That's actually very helpful because the rustling is, the background noise is hard to get through. Okay, so now let's get through what Fibonacci's name is. Here we go. Is it working? Yeah. All right, so Fibonacci and the Fibonacci sequence. And this everybody, well, I don't know if everybody is very familiar with this, but this is, let me show it on my, well, first I'll just start with this. It's the numbers. We start off with, no, go to draw. Just draw a line. 1, no, I'm just trying, oh, sorry guys. I'm still figuring out how to use this system so that I can draw, and I just want to draw. There we go. So we have the number, wait, actually, let me start this correctly. The Fibonacci sequence begins with the number 0. Now I have to tell you guys all about the number 0. And some of this information comes from, hold on a second while I get to my notes, because I want to give wonderful credit. There's this documentary, and I will include the links in the Facebook event and in the message that I send out with everyone. I have a Vimeo link for this. It's called literally The Story of One, like the digit 1. And it's from that guy, Terry Jones. He's from Monty Python, but apparently he's a pretty deep thinker. And he did this presentation that's all about numbers and the history of numbers. So and this is where I'm getting some of this information for this presentation. And I can also tell you, just because I'm giving credit for interesting things that you should look at and the origin of some of where I got the story of maths. So one is the story of 1. The other one is called the story of maths. The Story of Maths is available on Netflix, and it's a mathematician named Marcus du Sautoy, and that's where I got a lot of interesting stuff about Fibonacci from. Okay, so basically, this is in the Middle Ages, like, whatever, roughly like, the 900 years ago, that this Fibonacci, in the Middle Ages, they didn't use Arabic numerals the way that we understand Arabic numerals. And Arabic numerals, by that I mean, I'm just pulling up this whiteboard again so I can write and draw. Okay, Arabic numerals are numerals like 1, 2, 3. They are actually not from Arabia. They're actually from the continent of India. And the way that those number, symbols were developed, it was originally scratch marks, 1, and then there were 2, and then, 3 lines like that. And now if I change the color, let me just change the color. So if we are to connect this, then we kind of end up with a number 2. And if we are to connect this, then we kind of end up with a number 3. So I hope you can see the connection between the numbers 2 and 3, how these 6, you can imagine simple stick shapes turning into numbers 1, 2, and 3. That was actually developed in India. India has an amazing, rich history of high-level math use in what would, before the Common Era, before the historical Jesus, before what is in our present calendar system as the year 0. Over 2,000 years ago, they were calculating enormous amounts, enormous numbers with their number system in India. They were incredibly sophisticated, as opposed to in the Middle Ages and in Europe, what they used were Roman numerals. Here's a 1, well, we know 1, 2, and 3, and then a 4 is an IV, because we have 1 from 5. And the Roman system, here, I'll go back to my face, The Roman system was very effective for cataloging. Like the Roman Empire, they were all about, like, we're going to count up how many jars of wine you have, or we're going to count up how many soldiers you have. Very good for counting and cataloging, but not very good for calculating. So along about the Middle Ages, they wanted to do things like to be able to determine interest. If you loan someone money and you want to get money back plus interest, they had to have some way of calculating this. And in the Middle Ages in Europe, they didn't yet have the number 0. The number 0 was considered witchcraft. It was considered something very supernatural. They were mistrustful about a number that's not a number. They didn't have to have the number 0, because if you have nothing of anything, you don't have to write it in a ledger. I have nothing of that thing. It only had numbers that represented things, as opposed to ancient India, where the number and concept of 0 came from. They were much more conceptual and theoretical about their math. So basically, Fibonacci was a European that traveled throughout the Middle East, where these concepts from India, the Far East, had filtered through to the Middle East, and that is why he called it Arabic numerals as opposed to Indian numerals. And this guy, Fibonacci, started to understand that these Arabic numerals were like a lot more agile, as opposed to like the clunky, boxy Roman numerals that you can't do very much with. All of a sudden, with these Arabic numerals and with the concept of 0, it was much more acrobatic. They could do all sorts of fun flips and somersaults calculations, fun and interesting calculations with these. So he started to do fun and interesting calculations. Now let me pull up my picture chart that I was testing out, trying to make sure everyone could see before. And the calculations are this. Thank you for bearing with me while I do the technology stuff. You guys are wonderful. Go into this thing. I know I'm pressing a lot of buttons. It's like I have to learn a new instrument. It's very challenging to do this, but very rewarding. Good, the thing came up. All right, cool. So the Fibonacci sequence, this also relates to phi, that proportion of your leg bone to your calf bone. And this relates also to the 60-degree angles and equilateral triangles and hexagonal grid of your physical cellular structure. Fibonacci, as a mathematician, started to experiment. We start off, I want to annotate. Start off with the number 0. And that's the beginning. And then in the next number in the sequence is 1. And then what happens if we add together the numbers 0 plus 1? Well, we get the number 1. And then what happens if we add together the numbers 1 plus 1? Well, then we get the number 2. And then what happens if we, that didn't work right. Let me redo it so that you can see it, because this kind of matters. Then we get the number 2. Then what happens if we add together the numbers 1 plus 2? You guys are all good at math. You know it's 1 plus 2. It's 3. And then wait. What happens if we add together the numbers 2 plus 3? We get 5. And then what happens if we add together the numbers 3 plus 5? We get the number 8. And what happens if we add together 8 plus 5? And I'm getting off the edge of the screen, but 8 plus 5, we get 13. And then what happens if we add together 8 plus 13? We get 21. And this is what the Fibonacci sequence is. 0, 1, 1, 2, wait. I'm not highlighting the right thing. Let me do this correctly. I wasn't reading my chart correctly. 0 is the first one. 1 is the next one. 1 is the next one. And 1 plus 1 equals 2. And then 2 plus, and then the next one, 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 3 plus 2 equals 5 right here. 5 plus 3 equals 8 right here. 5 plus 8 equals 13 right here. 8 plus 13 equals 21 over here. Let's get more complex. 21 plus 13 equals 34 down here. And then we have 34 plus 21 equals 55. And we keep on moving forward and forward and forward in this, what would be considered a geometric expansion, or a geometric progression. That's the word I was looking for, of these numbers. So the Arabic numbers were fun. Arabic numerals were a fun, new, more acrobatic, more limber, more flexible way of understanding quantities. And the whole idea of phi. Now I want to clear things up. Clear the jot. Phi, that's what I hope you can read that on your screen. This column of this presentation over here is all about phi. So phi is a ratio. And if we say that this line that I'm drawing right here is the correct ratio of phi, what these, I still want to annotate, I want to change colors. What these numbers are doing is oscillating above and below this ideal number of truth. So in that little drawing that I just drew there, this red line, that red line there, that's the number of truth, all right? And the numbers that are up here, that's a little bit too high. And the numbers that are down here are a little bit too low. They're not exactly approximating truth. So when we divide 0 by 1, we get the number 0. That's not truth. When we divide the number 1 from 1, we get this number over here. We get the number 1. And that is actually not truth either. If this number right here represents 1.618 going in this direction indefinitely, 1 is less than 1.618. It's all the way down here. And let's say, wait, let me make it better. It's a big oscillation all the way down here. Not only wrong, it's a lot wrong. And then what's 1 divided by 2? Sorry, I have it backwards. What is 2 divided by 1? Well, then we have the number 2. And the number 2 is the next oscillation. That's all the way up here. That is way, way, way wrong, and it's way too much. Let's consider this like the price is right. That's the best analogy I can come up with. This phi oscillation is like the price is right. Are you guessing the price is too low? Are you guessing the price is too high? And the basic premise is that as we move through this number progression, the oscillations get closer and closer to the level of truth, so that it ends up looking on a chart something like this. If we were to draw it, it would be first oscillation really, really wrong, oscillation really, really wrong, slightly less wrong, slightly less wrong, getting closer, getting closer, getting closer until it gets closer and closer and closer and closer. Oh, my pen is not that perfect. Closer and closer and closer and closer and closer until it's very, very, very close. So if you were to scroll all the way down this whole entire chart, by the time you get up to the fifth, 500 permutations down that chart, your deviance from phi, not pi, that 1.618 endless number moving forward becomes very, very small. So this is the basic premise, that through using the acrobatics of understanding numbers, going back to my face, going back to my face, going back to my face, through using the acrobatics of understanding this new number system known as Arabic numerals, that it was able to understand the proportion of the natural world better. So a lot of people are like, no, don't believe in mathemagicians. They're trying to fool you. They're trying to limit you. No, I think of it like this. So a couple of weeks ago, I shared in Adinkra. Let's show you what I'm talking about instead of just talking about it. by Dr. Gates. And I saw him speak, and it was very interesting. I got a chance to hand him the Flying Rainbow Lasagna card, so he got lasagna-fied. Good pictures coming up. Thank you for your patience. Come on, picture work. Oh, picture didn't work. Darn it. No, sharing pause. Resume share. Do it. Not working. Ow, come on, work thing. Let me try it one more time, guys, and see if I can show you the adinkra. I don't know why it didn't work on that occasion. Work. Thing, work. I wave my magic wand and poof, you work. Do it. Good, it worked. Awesome. So this shape, oops, we want to annotate. Here we go. This shape over here is called an adinkra. That is a word that comes, oh, I should write it for you. That comes from the work of Dr. Gates. So this is not my image. I'm using it, someone else has created it. Boom. Sorry, just getting that little pencil to come up again. It is a visualization or a way to look at various different math and physics forces that are at work. And it comes from ancient Africa. The word adinkra over here, this comes from these textile prints and also ways of decorating the exterior of like adobe to make these complex patterns. Those are called adinkras. And they had a lot of complex math in the culture that wasn't necessarily recognized, that was even maybe historically underreported or underrecognized because the weaving of textiles and the making of patterns on mud walls was not recognized in the same way that, written books about numerical exploration in Europe were recognized. So that's why this is, trying to bring a bit more credibility to that area of the world and the culture that's in that area of the world. This is a representation of lines of force, of math concepts such as addition and subtraction and calculations, and also of physical objects. In this case, these are bosons and fermions. That's if you can read those little tiny words down at the bottom. So all of this in order to say that we can represent math also in a visual sense, in a sense of vectors of force. And that's also what vortex math is all about. The idea, I've shown you that, I think, in the past, or I can show you the picture, creating that figure 8 pattern around which all the numbers are arranged so that we have vectors or lines of force that represent addition, subtraction, multiplication, doubling. All of this in order to say that 900 years or so ago, almost 1,000 years, people were just starting, or human culture in the West was just starting to understand this really complex relationship between numbers as a symbol system and the physical body. And they started to understand that it seems as if numbers are making your body happen. Numbers can be a way of describing what is happening in your body. And that whole little anecdote on Dr. Gates and the adinkra, because in the presentation that he gave, he said that he considered, high-level math to be like ESP, what I'm always pointing to over here on your face, the extrasensory perception, higher dimensional perception. So for me, it comes as insight, like this pure understanding that I'm able to translate into these paintings back here. But for him, it came through calculations, that it is a way of using numbers to look at things we couldn't ordinarily look at with our physical eyes. So we can use numbers to calculate in order to look at the possibilities of what might be happening on a very tiny, tiny microscopic level, or a very, very giant macroscopic level, like the size of the entire galaxy or many galaxies or universe or cosmos or multidimensional cosmos. And also being able to see into places that would burn our eyes, like if we wanted to see in the center of a sun, the center of a star. What's going on in the center of a star? Can we actually go there and fly there? No, we would melt. So how can we then perceive what's going there? Well, you can use your telepathy to see what's going there. This doctor used math and calculations in order to try to determine what was going on in the center of a star. So it's another form of ESP. So I consider all this to be empowering information, not disempowering information. The next thing I say is, does anybody have any questions? Because I know I just put a lot of information out there, and I expect that there might be things that they would like to know more about. And the basic takeaway of this level of the presentation is that the flower of life involves more than one simple dimension. So anyone, if you have questions or comments, now is a good time, because I'm almost completing. I got a few more minutes on this level 1, then we're going to move on to level 2. You can unmute yourself and say or share whatever you would like to say or share. The basic takeaway is that flower of life flat pattern is actually a simplification of something that is more complex and multidimensional, and that it's up to each one of us with our higher dimensional viewpoint to add in that additional degree of freedom by the way that we're viewing all of this, and to understand that we are more than just a body that is frozen. I'm not frozen. I'm moving through time. Look at me, everybody. I'm moving through time. We're all moving through time. We've been in this classroom for about an hour. We're not in the same body that we were in before. So we have to also factor in that higher dimensional aspect of self, that is the time body, and understand the interrelationship between these two bodies. When you do that, so the outer skin of this torus is essentially the end result calculation of what you are doing through time. You could say that every one of your thoughts and ideas is like a number, 1 + 1 + 2 + 3 + 5, on and on and on and on and on in a sequence. So that was like, I was born, I ate this food, I did this thing, I thought this thing, oh, but then I did this thing that made me die in the membrane of death. That was the end of your calculation, ended in that equals death. And that on that time vortex diagram that I do all the time, the membrane of death is full of the unsuccessful calculations where you went through the iteration where you were like, I did this version of reality and it ended in death. And what we are all doing with the events of our life is to try to see what combination of events and thoughts and feelings and other things that we do to navigate the time field do we need to do in order to reach that central core timeline. Let me find a little thing that I can gesture with. That central core timeline that goes up the center and that does not hit the membrane of death because it is in perfect alignment with this larger matrix of time. So all of this is meant to be empowering information, not mere, overwhelm or just, random stuff. Questions, comments, concerns, I'm open. Lay it on me if you need to. Otherwise, I'll move on to level 2. And I'm just drinking some water. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for bearing with me on figuring out this new technological setup and any problems you might have had with being able to listen with the audio. Just drinking and opening the floor if anyone has anything that they need to or want to say. Okay, and this lesson, this presentation corresponds roughly with lesson 11 of the level 1 stuff, which is all about flower of life and how that relates to flying rainbow lasagna. And I did that, but briefly also, I'm looking over here to get a few more pictures that I can show you about how, there we go. I'll show you one more thing before I sign off. Boom. Takes a second, it's coming up. Come on, work, poof. I wave my magic wand and poof, you work. It's doing it. It's doing it good. This, you can see 6-sided shape. You can see that star pretty easily there. There we go. This 6-sided shape over here. How that, I did this in a previous presentation, how that relates to this chakra shape for vortices. So this is actually technically, just half of that yellow sculpture that I always show. That's not the best drawn line, but you know what I'm talking about. That's this half of, I don't know if you can even see this, I'm holding it up to the camera, half of one of these, and how that relates to that 6-pointed star. And that 6-pointed star, the Merkaba, that is like, if you were not taught how to turn that into an octagon, which is how I do it like this. Here, I did this not last week, 2 weeks ago. And that's a really rough drawing. I'm getting better. Oops. Hey, look, I just turned it into an octagon. Hope you can see that an octahedron has 8 sides. We rearranged the sides. We didn't add anything new. We didn't take anything away. All that we did was rearrange the sides. So the takeaway, so going back to my face, hold on a second. In terms of transforming this shape into a flying rainbow lasagna shape, we're not taking anything away. We're not adding anything. That's the whole point. This doesn't break any rules. We're looking at the math concepts of the cosmos. When I invented this and created this, it's very similar to when you're doing a math proof and you have 3 or 4 assertions, and you must come up with the next rational conclusion. that doesn't come into conflict with anything else that's already been asserted or established. This has already been established. And also, this is not meant to be some kind of Saturn's cube, reduction of freedom, chains on your body. It's not supposed to be like that at all. But this is supposed to be a playground or a laboratory within which we can explore things, because you're supposed to be empowered and be allowed to make choices. So all of the frustrations come from people that have not activated the higher faculties and been able to express their will. Yes, it's very frustrating and very limiting to have to play every single wrong note on the piano before you actually find the right note that you're actually looking for. So that's not how we want to have to navigate this map. If you navigate this landscape, let's say, if you can't read the map, then you have to open every single possible wrong door and die before you get to open the right door that actually allows you to continue to live forever. And what we do when we transform this shape into this shape is we don't add anything or take anything away. We just make it move in a higher dimensional space. This is the solution as to how to not be limited by this shape or the constraints that have been applied to humanity for a long time up until this point. So I'm going to wrap up the recording for right now. If there are any more questions or anything like that, now's the time. If not, thank you to everyone who has watched. Thank you for future comments. And let me also say this, I have the best comments I adore all of the YouTube comments, and people are always very insightful and very encouraging. Apologies if I don't get to respond to them immediately. Please keep the comments coming. And if you have any questions, if you're not in the class or on any of the email lists, I will try to answer your questions as best I can. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to level 2.